Welcome to Literary Leap. Today we are diving into a poem that speaks directly to the heart, Father to Son by Elizabeth Jennings. This beautiful yet poignant piece captures the universal struggle between a father and his son as they try to bridge the emotional gap that has grown between them over the years. Jennings paints a picture of love and loss, of longing for connection, and of the hope that reconciliation is always possible. As we explore the lines of this poem, we'll find ourselves reflecting on our own relationships and the unspoken words that sometimes linger between us and those who we care about the most. So sit back and let's journey together through this touching exploration of family, love, and the power of forgiveness. I do not understand this child, though we have lived together now in the same house for years. I know nothing of him, so try to build up a relationship from how he was when small, yet have I killed. In these lines, the father expresses his confusion and frustration over not understanding his son, even though they have lived together for many years. Despite being in the same house, he feels distant from his son and realizes that he knows very little about him. The line, I do not understand this child, shows the father's difficulty in connecting with his son emotionally. The word understand here means the father cannot connect with or comprehend his son's thoughts or emotions. Though we have lived together now in the same house for years, emphasizes that physical proximity has not led to emotional closeness. In the lines, build up a relationship, the father tries by recalling how his son was when he was small, but his effort seems weak because their bond has not developed over the years. Build up a relationship means to create or strengthen their emotional connection. The phrase, yet have I killed, hints at the father's guilt as if he might have destroyed or harmed their relationship, likely through his actions or lack of communication. The idea of killing the relationship is a metaphor for destroying or damaging their bond. So we see the father struggles and it shows the emotional distance and regret the father feels trying to revive a relationship that has deteriorated over time. The seed I spent or sown it where the land is his and none of mine. We speak like strangers. There's no sign of understanding in the air. This child is built to my design, yet what he loves I cannot share. So, in these lines, we see the father continues to express his disappointment about his relationship with his son. He compares their bond to planting a seed that didn't grow the way he expected it. The seed I spent or sown refers to the father's efforts in raising his son as if he planted seeds, that is, metaphorically used, by investing time and care. He wonders if he planted it in the wrong place, asking, the land is his and none of mine? This means that his son's world or interests are entirely different from his own, suggesting a sense of separation. We speak like strangers or people who are unfamiliar with each other. So, this highlights the lack of communication and understanding between them as if they don't know each other anymore. The no sign of understanding in the air shows that they don't connect emotionally and there's a clear disconnect between them. This child is built to my design. Here, the father means that the son is physically like him, implying a shared genetic or familial resemblance. Here, the son's physical or personal traits shaped by the father are being mentioned. However, What he loves I cannot share emphasizes that they don't have common interests, making it difficult for the father to relate to or understand his son. Now, coming to figures of speech, we see metaphor in the use of some words. The seed represents the father's efforts in raising his son, and land symbolizes the son's life or identity, which is distant from the father. We speak like strangers is a simile as it compares their communication to that of unfamiliar people, highlighting the emotional distance. The father feels as though his son has grown into someone he can't understand or connect with. Despite the physical resemblance between them, the metaphor of planting a seed conveys the father's sense of failure in nurturing their relationship. Silence surrounds us. I would have him prodigal, returning to his father's house, the home he knew, rather than see him make a move his world. I would forgive him too, shaping from sorrow a new love. In these lines, the father reflects on the silence between him and his son, showing how much distance has grown in their relationship. He longs for his son to return to him, much like the prodigal son from the biblical story who returns home after straying away. Silence surrounds us means that there is no communication or connection between them. The lack of words symbolizes their emotional distance. The father wishes his son would come back to him as the prodigal, a reference to the story of the prodigal son who leaves his father's home but eventually returns seeking forgiveness. The father here also desires his son to come back to the familiar, that is his father's house, a place of love and understanding. So, here we see biblical allusion or reference to the prodigal son, adding depth to the father's longing for reconciliation. Now, instead of seeing his son go off and create his world, meaning an independent life apart from him, the father would prefer to have him back where things were once familiar. I would forgive him too, shows the father's readiness to forgive his son for the emotional distance or for straying away. The father is willing to let go of past hurt and make peace with his son. Shaping from sorrow a new love suggests that the father is willing to rebuild their relationship, learning from the sadness of the past to form a stronger bond in the future. The father wants to turn their sadness into a new, better relationship. So let's move to the figures of speech. Silence surrounds. It is an alliteration emphasizing the quiet and isolation between the father and the son. Shaping from sorrow a new love is a metaphor as it compares the father's emotional rebuilding of love to physically shaping something new from sadness. So, in these lines, the father expresses his deep desire for reconciliation. He wants his son to return home where he can forgive him and rebuild their relationship from the sorrow they both feel. The father is ready to move past their differences to create a new, more loving bond. Father and son, we both must live on the same globe and the same land. He speaks. I cannot understand myself why anger grows from grief. We each put out an empty hand, longing for something to forgive. In these lines, the father reflects on the fact that despite living in the same world, he and his son remain emotionally distant. Both of them are struggling with feelings of sadness, anger, and a desire for reconciliation, but they are unsure how to bridge the gap between them. Father and son, we both must live on the same globe and the same land, emphasizes that although they live in the same physical world, they are emotionally disconnected. This highlights the irony of being close physically but distant emotionally. The son speaks, but the father still doesn't understand him. This suggests a communication breakdown where even the son is confused, as seen in the line, I cannot understand myself. The son is unable to explain why his emotions have turned from grief, that is, sadness, into anger. Why anger grows from grief indicates that the sadness they feel due to their strained relationship has evolved into frustration or resentment. We each put out an empty hand. Now, this symbolizes that both the father and son want to reconcile, but their attempts feel empty or unfulfilled. It conveys the idea that they are reaching out, but they can't grasp or understand each other's feelings. Longing for something to forgive suggests that both are searching for a reason to forgive each other, showing a deep desire for resolution and healing, even if they aren't sure what caused the rift. Now let's look at the figures of speech. We each put out an empty hand. It is a metaphor for their failed attempts to connect emotionally, as if they are reaching out but unable to touch or understand each other. Anger grows from grief. This is an antithesis. It contrasts two opposite emotions, grief and anger, showing how one emotion transforms into the other. So, in these lines, we see that the poet captures the emotional complexity of the father and son's relationship. The father and son both long for reconciliation, but they are trapped in their feelings of sadness, anger, and confusion. They are reaching out to each other emotionally, but their efforts feel empty and unfulfilled, leaving them both searching for a way to forgive and move forward. As we come to the end of Elizabeth Jennings' Father to Son, we are reminded that relationships, even those built on the closest of bonds, can become strained by time, silence, and misunderstanding. The father longs for his son to return, both physically and emotionally, while the son grapples with his own confusion. Now, despite their distance, both share a deep desire for reconciliation. Jennings paints a poignant picture of love, regret, and the human need for connection, reminding us that sometimes all it takes is reaching out and finding a way to forgive. So, whether it's a father and son or any relationship in our life, this poem leaves us with a simple truth. Love may not always be easy, but it's worth the effort. Let's not wait for silence to speak louder than our words. Thank you for watching, and I hope this journey through father to son has given you something to reflect on in your own relationships. If you enjoyed this breakdown and have any questions or thoughts about the poem we just discussed, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Before we wrap up, don't forget, on my channel you'll also find MCQs and detailed questions and answers to help you prepare thoroughly for your exams. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe for more literary insights, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content. Until next time, keep the wonder alive, and as always, stay curious, stay creative, and keep leaping into literature with Literary Leap.